Kia ora koutou. Hello everyone and welcome to another Vernon CMS webinar. Today we're going to be talking about security. We'll start off with an overview of how security works in Vernon and then we'll look at some specific examples. The security tool is under Tools, System Maintenance, Security Tool. Security is all about how you manage access to things in Vernon. Just like the building where you work, we need to make sure that the right people have the right access to the right things. At your workplace, you may have a swipe card that allows you to go through certain doors. The security team needed to assign a swipe card to you and load certain permissions onto it. The way that they do this, and the way that we do it in Vernon, is to have security groups that we can put people into. We can then manage access at the group level rather than at the user level. It makes it much easier if we can say that this person does this type of job and therefore needs access to these sorts of things and put them in the appropriate group. We say that one group of people needs access to view records, but not create or edit them. So we'll call them the public group, and we'll put some of our in-house researchers as well as our director in that group. And another group of people are doing cataloguing work. They need access to view, create, and edit records, but maybe not delete them. So we'll call them the cataloguer group and set those permissions. And then we'll have a couple of people who are responsible for the maintenance of Vernon CMS, and they're going to have the greatest level of access possible so that they can support all the other users and keep the system running well. So they'll have access to every part of the system, including the ability to delete records. We'll call them the supervisor group. So we have different levels of access for our groups, and this is called a hierarchy. We have the public group, which is subordinate to the cataloguer group, which is subordinate to the supervisor group. If we need to set up a new group, we can determine their level in the hierarchy in terms of their access needs. When we create the group, we can say that perhaps the cataloguer group is subordinate to it. In other words, this new group is superior to the cataloguer group. That means the new group is going to inherit the rights of the cataloguer group and do everything that group can do, plus a few more things. It makes it easier to manage as you don't have to set up every single permission each time you create a new group. The way that we manage access to information and features in Vernon CMS is called datafile security and process security. Datafile security controls who can create, delete, view, or modify records, such as object records. And process security controls the features that users can access. For example, tools, windows, and menu items. So today we're going to look at how to create a user, put them in a group, and then we'll look at how that group's permissions are structured. To create a user, we click on the Users button. We enter a username, and I'm going to create a username for Bill Vernon. So I'm going to enter B Vernon. We recommend using a consistent naming convention, and most commonly that would be the first initial plus their last name. In the person field, I'm going to enter Bill's person record. So I'll enter his name and press enter. So that's now connected to his person record in Vernon. The reason that we do that is it helps us keep track of who this username is for, and we can also keep track of other information about the individual, like their work email address and their job title. The next thing I'll do is put Bill into a group. So in this area groups, I'll click add. Those are the groups that I have available in Vernon, and I'm going to choose Social History Cataloger and click OK. You can add a user to multiple groups, and then the user's security rights will come from whichever group has the least restrictions. So now I can click Save, and I've created a user. So I would then give that username to Bill, and anytime you do this, you should encourage your users to go and set up their own password by going to Tools, User Tools, Change Password. So it's important they set a password, so make sure that you instruct them to do that. Now let's take a look at our different groups in Vernon in more detail. I'll click the Groups button, and then I'll click Advanced Search to open the list of my different groups. I'll select all of them and click OK. So looking at the cataloger group to start with, I can see which users are in this group. I can see which groups are superior. So in this case, the supervisors group is superior. And I can see which groups are subordinate. So the public group is subordinate. I can check what access they have to data files or files. Data file is just another word for files in Vernon, like the object file. I can click View Data File Security. And that shows me that for the object file, the cataloger group can create, view, and modify object records, but they can't delete them. And that's the same for person records as well. I can also see what processes they have access to. So I can click View Allowed Processes, and I'll just highlight a few examples here. We can see some menu options that they have available. So this says that they have access to the database menu and various options within there. They also have access to some options under the file menu. And we also have a list of windows that they have access to, which includes activities, which is listed here as management. So activities windows and object windows, as well as others in the cataloging module. I can click View Disallowed Processes to see things that they're not allowed to access. So that includes being able to use the File Delete option in the File menu. And there's a range of tools that they're not able to access either under the Tools menu. Let's look at the next group. So here we have the public group. We've got the users that are part of this group. We have the superior groups, and there are no subordinate groups. So there's no groups lower than the public group in the hierarchy. The public group is at the lowest level in the hierarchy. If I click View Data File Security, I can see that in the object file, they don't have access to create, delete, or modify object or person records, but they can view them. Let's look at the next group, which is the Social History Cataloger group. So we've got two users in there, including Bill Vernon that I just added. So they have the superior group of being supervisors, subordinate group being public. And if I look at the data file security for this group, I can see some information that's a bit different to what we saw on the previous screens. So we can see for the object file that there's a bit of code here, and this is called the depends routine, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And we can also see that at the field level, there are some variations as well on what they can do within the object file. So we'll look a bit more closely at this example. So now I'll click on data file so that I can go and look at different files like the object file and see who can access that and what they can access. So now I'm in the data file security window, and again I'll click Advanced to open up the list, and I'll choose Object. So we've got two tables here, record level rights and field level exceptions. So at the record level, we can see the different groups and what they have access to. And that's how we set that information that we saw before for the different groups in terms of what they could access on the object file and the person file. For the social history cataloger, we have what we call our depends routine. This is a piece of code. And basically that sets permission depending on some aspect. That can often be a specific field like department or procedural status that determines whether or not a group has certain rights. In this case, the routine says that they can create, view, or modify object records, but not those that have an object procedural status of deaccessioned or considered item. So that's what that code means, and we can help you set those up if you have a specific case that you want to cater for. In the field level exceptions table, we can see that we have some exceptions for the social history cataloger group. We're saying that for these valuation fields, they can't view or modify those. So let's take a look at the person file. I'll click on Advanced and choose Person. And here we have a more simple security setup. We don't have the depends routine and we don't have any field level exceptions. It's just yes or no whether a group can create, delete, view, or modify. And you'll notice that the social history cataloger doesn't have any permissions listed here, but because the public group is subordinate, the social history cataloger group is inheriting their rights automatically. So what's the difference between secured files and unsecured files? By default, only the object and person files have any security. So when a data file has security enabled, you must specifically allow groups to view, create, edit, or delete records in that file. Otherwise, the data file can't be accessed. So you can think of secured data files as rooms with locked doors. Unless you give someone a key, they can't get in. As for unsecured data files, if a data file doesn't have any security, then all users can create, view, edit, or delete records in that file. So you can think of unsecured data files as rooms with no locks. Anyone can enter the room. You can secure other data files, and I'll show you an example of how we can do that. So we select this option, secure another data file, click OK, and we can choose the file that we're going to secure. And I'm going to secure the outward loan file. So that's here. So now we're in the data file security for the outward loan file, and I'll tick data security active. And now I must explicitly add groups to this file in order for them to be able to access it. And that includes my own group, which is supervisors. Otherwise, people won't be able to access this file. Now I can click Save. We've set the data file security for that. So we've said that some people can't delete, some people can't create, and some people, those in the supervisor group, can do everything. When a person leaves your organization or doesn't require access to Vernon CMS anymore, you can delete their user. Deleting their username removes them from your list of users. It removes the link to their person record, but it doesn't remove their username from the update history or delete any information that they've added to Vernon CMS, and it doesn't remove their person record. So I'll show you how we can delete a user. So I'll use our example of Bill. I've chosen his name from the list. I'll click into his person field and click Go To so that I can open up his related person record and just make an entry in the names table of his username. So that's for our reference, so that we know in the future that Bill Vernon was connected with the username bvernon. In the known as column, I'm going to enter bvernon, and I'll save that. I'll close out of this person window, and now we're back in the security user window. And at this point, I can just go File, Delete to delete that user. An alternative is that you can keep the user record, but just remove them from all groups. So this blocks access for the user, but it still allows you to see that connection to their person record.